Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. My name is Stephanie Bree. I am a transgender woman, and today I'm talking about why I dropped out of high school because of math. This is a personal video. I'm going to dig into my personal life, my childhood trauma, and open up about why my adult education was as rocky as it was. And so this is going to be a longer video, think 30 minutes thereabouts. I promise it won't go longer than that. I will watch the timer and I'll shut up at 30 minutes thereabouts, 30 to 35, give or take. So I'll try to keep this relatively short. This isn't going to be another 90-minute video or hour-long video, I promise you that. But there's a lot to unpack. So, I've already done my video on my mental health struggles, and some of these mental health struggles, I had early development versions of them as a kid. Some of them are probably caused by childhood trauma. At least this is what my therapists tell me. Especially PTSD. I'm pretty sure my PTSD is from childhood trauma because that's what PTSD is. So, yeah. Anyways, math. So, math is complicated for me, and this is very personal, so please do not leave negative comments on this video, please. When I was in kindergarten, back it up. Before kindergarten, the year before kindergarten, I had a brain trauma. I had to go into the hospital and have surgery on the back of my brain because I cracked open my skull. And in the immediate aftermath of that, I had physical problems with my hand-eye coordination and my fine motor skills because of brain damage. Irreparable, irreversible brain damage. Which there was nothing I can do about it because, I was lucky that it didn't, fuck me up worse. It could have made me worse. It could have really, really fucked me up. So I'm pretty lucky in that regards. Before kindergarten, I was left-handed. You may notice this is my left hand. This is the one I take my glasses off with. This is the one I usually flip the bird, fidget. You see me using my left hand a lot. When I went into kindergarten, I was forced to use my right hand. I went into kindergarten in 1986, 87, in a small town you will not find on the map in Kansas. And I'm not going to identify it because I don't want you looking for it. So they made me learn how to write with my right hand. Now, because I already had problems with my fine motor skills and my hand-eye coordination, and I was clumsy, very fucking clumsy. I'm Jar Jar Binks clumsy in real life, too. So, yeah. You see pictures of my car, and it's got dents all over the goddamn place. I am Jar Jar Binks levels of clumsy. So they put me in physical therapy. And they gave me physical therapy once a week. And because of my antisocial behaviors, because I didn't talk to the other kids, I didn't talk to the students, and I was weird. I licked my hands. I talked to myself. I would sit in the corner and talk to myself verbally. I brought toys to school and would play with them in class instead of paying attention. I would get on the desk and pretend I was a transformer and do transformations at recess and gym and etc. So I was a fucking weird kid. So they also put me in once a week. They put me in therapy. This wasn't just that. So I had physical therapy once a week, and then I had talk therapy once a week, where it was literally just, come on in and tell me how you're doing. Tell me a story. My therapist would always be like, tell me a story. And I would usually tell her something that happened on the Transformers cartoon because that's what I knew about, or the video games I played. My physical therapist determined that because I was interested in video games, I had an Atari at home, they told my parents and gave me a prescription to play more video games. They told my parents that I needed to play more video games. They said at least 1 hour a day. So I had a doctor's note telling me to play video games for 1 hour a day. And so I would go home from school and play video games. My parents bought, I had the Atari, and then they bought us an NES. Now, the NES was a family present. It was one of those, it was the only thing we got for Christmas that year, and I had to share it with my sisters. But because of my unique situation, my parents gave me my own TV and put it in my bedroom, and it was basically my sisters had to knock on my door and ask if it was okay to come in and play the NES, whereas I didn't have to do that. I could just sit and play it all day long. Now, I couldn't just say no, so if my sisters wanted to come in and play, I had to let them, but it was in my bedroom because I had a doctor's note telling me to play video games to help me with my physical therapy. And so I would play video games. Now, because of this and the other things that I've already outlined, being antisocial and weird and, secretly transgender but not having the words for it at a young age, I avoided other kids and I didn't do much in the way of schoolwork. I loved dinosaurs. I was fascinated by dinosaurs, so I paid attention in science class because we would usually talk about dinosaurs. I also had a fascination with stars and astronomy, so I would pay attention during whenever we were talking about stars and the sun and the planets and the asteroids and things like that. I didn't pay as much attention during like the rock studies, so like the different types of rocks, or whenever science class was talking about clouds or chemicals or small machines, things like that. I didn't pay much attention to, but I paid attention in science class by and large because I was fascinated with it. I have an unhealthy obsession with the English language, and I'm fascinated by books, and I was reading 6th grade level in kindergarten, and I had to prove that I could read at a 6th grade level in kindergarten before the librarian would let me check out books that were not age appropriate because she didn't believe me at first. And I had to do this every school I went to. I had to take a test to prove that I could read at a 6th grade level because I was reading books way before I ever got to kindergarten. I was obsessed with reading, so I paid attention during phonics. I paid attention during English because I was fascinated with that. I paid attention during in grade school, they called it, what the hell did they call it? Social studies, because I had an interest in history and a fascination with history. So I did pay attention in social studies. I did not pay attention nor participate in PE class. So I got in trouble. I got detention a lot for talking back to the PE teacher and having attitude with the PE teacher. And I just didn't flat do shit in math class. I just didn't even fucking try. This was my first and second grade. This was my experience in math class. Because in first and second grade, math is counting, basic addition, very basic subtraction, and like parallel lines, perpendicular lines, your shapes, identify the different shapes. It's so fucking basic. So like when it was the stuff I wasn't interested in, like addition, subtraction, etc., I didn't even fucking do the homework. I just like fuck it. When it was the stuff I was interested in, like the shapes or the different types of lines, or whenever it was something neat or something that I thought was cool, I did pay attention. So I would do the homework, and then I would take the test and do well enough on the test to get a passing grade. Now, this is easy to do when you're in first and second grade because math isn't that complicated when you're in first and second grade. And your score, your grade, your passing grade is like 25% homework, and the rest of it is based on how well you do on the tests. There's 2 tests a year. There's your first semester test, which you take before winter break, and then your end of school test, which you take just before summer break. At least this is how my schools did it. And so tests are easy because there were multiple choice. And so you just guess, you take a guess, your best guess. You look at the 4 options and you eliminate the obvious wrong answer. And then you just either mini miny mow the rest, or you try your hardest to get as close as you can with whatever skill set you have. Things changed in 3rd grade. Math got hard in 3rd grade. They wanted me to learn my multiplication tables. They wanted me to learn division. They wanted me to learn fractions and decimals. Math got hard in 3rd grade. I wasn't really paying attention in 1st and 2nd grade, so I didn't have the foundation I needed going into 3rd grade for my math. And so in Kansas in the 80s and 90s, it may be different now, I don't know, but back then you could fail. Your report card was broken up into subjects. So you had PE, you had English, you had music, which was like band and music, you had social studies, phonics. English was reading and writing, so it wasn't really English, it was reading and then writing, and then you had math and science. Did I say PE? Yeah, PE. So you had like 6 or 7 subjects depending on what school you were in, what grade level you were in. Because as you advanced, they got rid of phonics, and then English, or reading and writing, got merged into English. Social studies got split into history and civics or government. So things get more complex as you grow older. But in Kansas, at the time, in the late 80s, early 90s, you could fail, get an F on 2 courses, and still advance to the next grade level. If you failed 3 courses, they held you back a year so that you could try again. I never got held back. But once I figured this out, and I figured this out in 3rd grade, I stopped trying in PE. I didn't dress out. I just sat on the fucking bench and flipped the middle finger to my PE teacher and got detention again. I got detention a lot. Because once I figured out that middle finger really made adults angry, I was quick to just throw it up every chance I could because, it makes the adults angry. And my intention was to piss off the adults. So, it worked. And then I stopped trying in math class. So when I say stop trying, I mean, 2:15 in the afternoon, the school teacher, the 3rd grade teacher says, "Get out your math book." I didn't get out my math book. I didn't read along. If she called on me, I ignored her. I didn't even answer her. If she told me to go up to the chalkboard, I would just go up there and doodle and then get sent to the principal's office for doodling instead of doing the problems. I did not do the homework. I didn't even bother to take the tests. I just stopped trying altogether. I just gave up in 3rd grade. So as an adult, going forward, my math skills are more or less an unrefined 3rd grade level. And I say unrefined because, I stopped trying, so I only got like the basics up to that point. So in 3rd grade, they figured out I had stopped trying, so they put me in special ed. I was in special ed 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, and then by the time I got to 6th grade, they gave up because they recognized I was stubborn and wasn't going to give a shit. I wasn't going to budge. And they basically stopped, the school district stopped funding my special ed education because they're like, well, they're not even going to try, so why even bother? So they discontinued my physical therapy. They discontinued my going to the counseling once a week, which I had kept doing up until that point. And they said I was on my own because I was too stubborn to play by the rules. So I was on my own. So 6th grade, things start to change. 6th grade is when they break up reading and writing. They merge it into English class. So it's not reading and writing anymore. It's just English class. They get rid of phonics altogether because you've already, presumably by that point in your education, you've already developed the phonics skills, the basics. So you don't need that class, that subject anymore. And social studies is broken up into history, and in 6th grade they call it civics, and then they call it government once you get to middle school or junior, senior high, depending on which school you go to, which is, again, depends on where you lived. I moved around a lot, so I went to a junior high and I went to a middle school, so I went to both. Junior high is a little easier than middle school in my experience, because I was in junior high for 7th grade and then middle school for 8th grade. They're basically the same thing, but not exactly the same thing. But I'm not going to talk about that here because I don't want this video to get too long. So, I had already given up. Now, once I got to 7th grade, things were different. 7th and 8th grade was still, you could fail a course and advance to the next level, but the courses were broken up, so you didn't have one teacher teaching everything. You had a specific math teacher, you had a PE teacher, you had a science teacher, etc., an English teacher, etc. And so in 7th grade, I had a math teacher who was familiar with my story and my background and everything and my deficiencies, and took an interest in my education and tried to make math fun, tried to catch me up. And so I made an attempt in 7th grade to learn. Now, 7th grade is also hormone city. I had a girlfriend at the start of 7th grade. We broke up midway through the semester. And so I had that broken heart syndrome where I just didn't give a shit anymore because I was like, fuck it, what's the point? So I stopped trying again because, whatever. And then we moved. Midway through 7th grade, we moved. And I started a new school on Valentine's Day in a new state. We left Kansas and moved to Nebraska. And so I started the second half of 7th grade in a middle school, which was a little bit different from the junior high I was used to. Still the basic structure was the same. You had different teachers for different subjects, but you had more subjects because, it was more like a high school. It was structured more like a high school, so instead of 7 classes, you had 9 classes, and you now had electives to choose from, which I didn't have. In my old school in junior high, you didn't have electives. It was just, these are the 7 classes you take, and you're going to take them. There was no electives. You didn't have any choice. So middle school was a little bit different because it was more like high school than junior high was, which is weird because you would think junior high would be more like high school, but whatever. It's complicated. It's, I don't know, fucking Kansas, Nebraska, whatever. And then 8th grade rolls along. So 7th grade, I just stopped trying altogether. Like, in my new school, I paid attention in the classes I liked, and in the classes I didn't, I just took the F. And I advanced into 8th grade. And then 8th grade is when I had my behavioral problems. And so I didn't have an 8th grade math teacher willing to work with me because I had not just detention, but in-school suspension and court-mandated anger management and court-mandated therapy sessions and things of that sort. Because I skipped over all of this, but I was done, like flat, point blank over being bullied. So I crossed the line from being bullied to being a bully. to like fighting back and beating kids up and just pushing kids away and being a piece of shit. And so I became a very violent kid. And so I was in detention a lot and ISS a lot and out of school suspension and a little bit. And so 8th grade, I did not get a proper education. I sat in a room where they put the bad kids, the troubled kids, the kids with behavioral issues. And we didn't have a teacher. I didn't get to go to my English class and get a lecture from my English teacher. I just had to do the English homework with no fucking preparation. Same way with math and everything else. I didn't even get to go to other classes. I was just stuck in a room with a computer and a notebook and my course books, and I was just like, fuck it, I'm just gonna take a nap. And I'm gonna get detention again anyways, so what's the fucking point? This culminated in the judge basically telling my parents to get me the fuck out of his state without saying those words. Which we did. We moved to Idaho and got out of there. So I went to high school and we moved to Nevada. We ended up, we moved to Idaho, then we moved to Nevada. I went to high school in Nevada. By the time I got to high school, I had essentially an incomplete 3rd grade math education. So I took 9th grade math, and it was called general math. Just general math. I had a math teacher who was a dick and did not give me any private tutoring, any lessons, did not answer my questions if I asked in class. He was snarky and said, I just showed you how to do it. You can figure it out. He was a total dick, useless piece of shit. We actually had a party, celebrated and had a party the day he died. Nobody mourned him. He was a piece of shit. He was an asshole motherfucker. So, I decided I wanted to go to college. I had a career counselor in high school who saw that I was intelligent and bright and very creative and fostered my creativity and my fascination with cinema and literature and music and things of that sort, and talked me into going to college. So I was excited for the prospect of going to college. So I actually gave it my all. I tried my fucking hardest in that general math class. I studied. I read the books. I would check out, Math for Dummies books at the library or the equivalent. I would practice at home. I actually tried. I made an effort. I wanted to learn. And I failed the fucking course. 9th grade to 10th grade, we moved again. And this time, I was over it. I had my 16th birthday the week after 10th grade started. And I just walked home. I left school, walked home, and told my parents I'm not going back. And of course, I got in a big fight. My parents were like, if you're going to drop out, you got to get a job. And I was like, I got to get a driver's license so I can get a job because we lived out in the country. And they were like, we're not going to give you we're not going to help you get your driver's license unless you go back to school or get a job. So I was like, well, I don't know what to do. And after fighting them for days, they finally caved and said, fine, fuck it, you can just sit at home. And then they said, well, because I was living in Idaho at the time, they said, well, we'll just homeschool you. Will you do that? And I said, sure. So they signed me up for homeschool curriculum, which I didn't do. I didn't even fucking open the books. I just played video games and said, fuck it. Watched movies and said, fuck it. Well, we ended up moving back to Nevada again because my mom got a job there and she wanted to move us back for whatever reason. Because we moved around all fucking time. So I went back to Nevada having dropped out of 10th grade, and now I was 17, and I decided to go back, re-enroll in school, and give it another shot. At 17, I should have been going into 11th grade. All my friends were going into 11th grade. I was going into 10th grade. Now, we moved back middle of the year. We moved back in January. So I had the first semester, I didn't even take any classes. So I took the second half of 10th grade as a 10th grader And then the next school year, I took the first half of that school year as a 10th grader, and then the second half of that school year as an 11th grader, which is weird, but that's how they did it. But between the year I dropped out and the year I went back, the Nevada state legislature changed the law. Up to that point, the law was you had to have 2 math credits to get a high school diploma, and then you can go to college. They changed the law because they passed a new law saying if you graduated from a Nevada high school, you would get so many dollars per year to go to a Nevada college, and they would pay for your education just for graduating high school. They would literally pay your education. So that was an incentive to not drop out of high school. Pretty good so far. Well, a caveat to that was you now had to have 4 years of math. And because the standards had changed from one year to the next, and because college admissions were more difficult now, because we had passed the millennium, we were past the year 2000, we were now into the new millennium, they changed. They dropped that general math class I had failed, and now the lowest math class you could take was algebra. Barely an incomplete 3rd grade education and dabbled here and there from 3rd grade to the 9th grade. I was lost day 1 in algebra. I was fucking lost. I was like, I don't even know any of this stuff. And like, he should know, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know, though. And the teacher wouldn't teach me because I should have already learned it, and I didn't. And he wouldn't teach me. So I gave up again. I went to my career counselor. Second week of what would have been the first semester of that school year I was 10th grade. The second semester I was 11th grade. So when I was 17, this would have been anyways, I went to my career counselor and I said, here's the thing. I'm dropping out at the end of this school year. I'll be 18 before next school year starts. I am not coming back. I'm not going to be enrolled in school at 18 years old in high school. I'm not going to do it because I'm not going to pass the math class. And so we changed my schedule. She canceled all of my classes, took me out, withdrew me from all of my classes, all my core classes. She withdrew me from history. She withdrew me from chemistry. She withdrew me from math, which would have been algebra. She withdrew me from all my core classes, just dropped them, and let me take only electives, only the classes I wanted to take. So I took band, I took computers, I took graphic design, I took media arts, I took choir, I took creative writing, these sorts of classes that were not going to get me a high school diploma at all, or a refined education. I only took the classes I wanted to take to learn the things I wanted to learn. And I took a video production class and a music production class. Music class was called music appreciation, and the video class was called publications. So it was like a combination of learning web design and also digital video production, because you were making digital videos and then putting them on the web. This is way before YouTube. So that's what the class was, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to grow up and be a filmmaker. I wanted to go to college and be a filmmaker, but I wasn't going. And I told my career counselor, what I'm going to do is drop out at the end of the year, go to the community college, get my GED, and then go to college from there. And she agreed to this plan on the condition that I took one class that she recommended. She had a class that was taught by my, I think it was my home ec teacher. I can't remember. Anyways, there was one class that was a SAT prep class. And she said, if you take the SAT prep class and pass it, I'll let you drop out of high school, and I won't harass you. I'll just leave you alone. And I'll get the school board off your back. Is what she said. She said, I will stick up for you if you take the SAT prep class, because her logic was, if you can pass the SAT prep class, you can pass your GED, because it's basically the same test. So I agreed to that. And that's what I did. I dropped out of high school, got my GED, got a job, and eventually went to college. But I had a road bump when I got to college. My first road bump was in admissions. They looked at my high school transcript and they said, "You're missing some requirements that you have to have in order to take college classes. So we have to start you off by taking those high school classes first, a whole semester of that." And one of the classes they wanted me to take was ninth grade math. And I said no. I said I'm not doing it. I went to the dean of my school. So you have the dean of the school, and then your individual program has its own dean. So there was the dean of journalism, or the communications dean, and there was the dean of English, blah, blah, blah. Each department had their own dean. I went to the dean, the journalism dean, and I said, I'm not doing that. And I sat in his office, and I told him my story, and I said, I'm not doing that. I want to study journalism as a major and theater as a minor, and I want to basically get as close to a film degree as your school can get me. After some back and forth and making some conditional promises, he agreed to let me do that on the condition that I took one math class called Math for Liberal Arts. He said, if you take that math class, you do that and take a foreign language class. That was the condition. Take that in a foreign language, and I will admit you into my program, and then we'll go from there. That was his condition. That was his terms. I negotiated those terms. So I took Math for Liberal Arts. Now, if you're not familiar with Math for Liberal Arts, let me just give you a breakdown of what it is. We had a unit on wills. Our class was, your parents died and they left you this house worth this much money and this much bullshit, this much junk, and you have 3 brothers and sisters or something like that. And then it was figure out how to divide up the junk. This was not addition, subtraction, multiplication. This was not plotting on a graph. This was not XYZ fucking algebra. This was basic, simple fucking grade school level math. This wasn't hard for me. It wasn't easy for me, but it wasn't hard for me either. I was able to take this class. I was capable of passing this class. Now, this video is going to stop around 35 minutes because that's what I promised, and we're at 33, so I'm going to try to wrap this up. Due to an incident that I will not talk about ever in my entire life with anybody, I got kicked out of school. And so, because I didn't graduate and I still had a long ways to go, I transferred to another university. I transferred to a different school. And they were willing to take all of my credits and plug them in where necessary to fill in the requirements for their degree. However, they had one requirement. They wanted me to take an algebra class. And I said, never going to happen. And so I went through that same process again at my next university where I was like, no, I had to make this deal with them to get in. This was the math class I took. This is the only math class I'm ever going to take. And so after arguing with my guidance counselor, arguing with my, whatever they're called, I don't know, just arguing with all the administrators and going through the process and having a hearing and having to sit down in a room full of administrators and pitch my story, they caved. They agreed to enroll me in the classes I wanted on the condition that I would, get student loans. And as long as I paid for my classes, they were like, whatever. They had one stupid class that they wanted me to take, Civil Liberties in America or something like that. I don't remember exactly what it was called. It was like Civil Liberties as an American Citizen or something like that. Civil Responsibility as a U.S. citizen or something like that. That was the one required class they wanted me to take. The rest of it was Pick and choose what you want, as long as it's it from this list. Here's a list of communications classes. Take as many communications classes as you want, and we'll give you a bachelor's of mass communications. And that's what I did. And so that is my story. I ended up, getting what I wanted, even though I had to basically argue my way through it the whole time. Today, as an adult, I still struggle with basic math. I don't even really know how to use a calculator. And so I have trouble with my finances and other things. So that's where I am as an adult.